Quit loafing around, you useless old hag.
Suddenly, a dull thud hit my back. As I involuntarily groaned and turned around, Marissa had stuck out her foot. Then, thuds kept hitting my back repeatedly. I heard Mel barking at Marissa, trying to protect me.
Ugh, so annoying. I'm going out for a bit,
Marissa said before leaving. Stunned by the unexpected pain, I was immobilized. Then, my mother-in-law Norma approached me. Don't just lie there in the way. You're a nuisance, Norma said, her words unkind and her gaze full of inconvenience, causing tears to spill from my eyes. Sensing my distress, Mel growled at Norma. Oh, scary, scary. Train that thing properly. Unlike you, I'll be going shopping with the lovely Marissa. Norma left without helping me. My only ally was Mel, who looked worried and licked my face. After they had gone, I heard the front door burst open and sensed someone rushing in. Still unable to move.
Are you okay?
An unexpected person came to my rescue. I am Olivia, a 32-year-old housewife. My husband, Nathan, works for a major corporation. Having once worked there myself, we have plenty of savings, allowing us to live comfortably even with me being a housewife. For the past few years, we've been living with Nathan's mother, Norma, in his family home.
How am I supposed to live on my own now that my husband is gone?
After being pleaded with by Norma, who would call incessantly every day or suddenly visit, we reluctantly agreed to live together. Initially, Nathan and I planned to share household duties while continuing to work, but a wife working is out of the question. If you work outside, you'll definitely cheat, Norma harassed me daily, even calling my company and causing work disruptions, leading to my resignation despite being retained. Upon this, Nathan apologized to me and scolded Norma.
Just a minute, Olivia. My room is a mess.
Oh, Norma, didn't you tell me not to enter your room because you didn't want me touching anything? So, please take care of it yourself. Or have you forgotten that already? Maybe we should get you checked at the hospital?
You.
Moreover, I'm not one to hold back in response. Having lost my parents early on, I've faced my fair share of hardships, so I won't be defeated by Norma alone. Nathan has given me the green light to speak my mind without reservation against his mom. Speaking of Nathan, he has a brother, Marcus, who is dearly adored by Norma. Honestly, I'm not fond of my brother-in-law, Marcus. I've met him a few times, but he's always expressionless, doesn't even twitch an eyebrow when Norma clings to him, and his aloofness makes it hard to understand what he's thinking. As a result, I keep my distance from Marcus, which means I also have little to do with his wife, Marissa. However, I've heard from Nathan that their marriage was heavily pushed by Norma and Marissa's parents. He's not a bad person, though, Nathan would say with a wry smile about the stoic Marcus. Then, unexpectedly,
Hello. We'll be in your care from today. What?
Oh, welcome, both of you. Marcus and his wife appeared at the entrance with a lot of luggage. And at Marcus's feet was a restless small dog.
What are you doing? Hurry up and bring in the luggage. Wait a minute. What's this about?
I asked, confused, and Marcus looked puzzled. Apparently, Marcus was transferred to a new hotel nearby, and due to Norma and Marissa's strong insistence, they decided to move in with us. And today was their moving day. I was not informed about this. Indeed, Norma had ordered me to stay home today, but...
You didn't know?
Yeah. Marcus sighed deeply at my response. Then, he looked around the house.
Where's Nathan?
Nathan is on a long business trip. Unfortunately, Nathan was on a long business trip. He couldn't refuse the trip related to his qualifications, and he left worried about me. I wanted to go with him, but I stayed behind, defeated by Norma's hysterical screaming. I've been outplayed. If I had been told, I would have opposed living with Marcus and his wife, or followed Nathan on his business trip. They must have kept it a secret until the last day for that reason. Norma gives me a nasty smirk.
Move it! Standing there, you're just in the way.
Carry your own luggage. Sorry, but could you please take care of Mel? Marcus sighed deeply again and handed me the leash of the small dog. The little dog, Mel, seemed friendly, quickly warming up to me with sniffs and licks. Though taken aback by the suddenness, I fell in love with adorable Mel, as I've always liked dogs. Nevertheless, I made sure to report this incident to Nathan.
What were you thinking? Making decisions about moving in together without telling us. Olivia could have come to stay with me.
Don't be ridiculous. Marcus and his wife are tired. We need to help them settle in. Despite Nathan's scolding over the phone, Norma seemed unfazed. Worst of all, in the chaos, Norma hid something precious of mine, leaving me unable to leave for Nathan's. So, I had no choice but to continue living with them. Let's get along from now on. I might be younger, but as the wife of Marcus, the eldest son, I rank above you.
Huh?
So, we're clear. Old-timer. I had a bad feeling not only about Marissa, who said this, but also about Marcus, who just silently watched us. The days that followed were challenging. Despite being a housewife like me, Marissa did no household chores. Oh, can you take care of this too?
It's no trouble since you're already doing it, right?
Marissa, in cahoots with Norma, dumped everything on me. Norma favored her because she was Marcus's young wife.
Marissa's beautiful hands would suffer if she did the dishes. Olivia, you do them.
They pushed all the dishwashing onto me.
Marissa's pretty face would get dirty if she cleaned. Olivia, you do the cleaning.
They dumped all the cleaning tasks on me too. Marissa just tagged along and laughed. Apparently, Marissa's family has been wealthy hoteliers for generations, never having to struggle, accustomed to having others do everything for them. So, having others do household tasks was normal for her.
Come on, do your own share at least.
It saves on the water bill if we do it together. Plus, what's the difference between doing it for one or two?
Marissa is right. You have nothing but household skills, so just do it quietly.
It was manageable when it was just Norma, but with Marissa joining in, it became troublesome. It was a constant battle of 2 against 1. With the increased number of people, I was the only one doing chores, adding to my burden. That I could still endure. But Marissa even pushed the care of Mel, the dog they brought, onto me. Mel's walk is your task today too.
Hey, you brought him.
He doesn't listen to me. Plus, taking him for walks is good exercise for you, right? You need to stay active while you can, unlike me in my 20s. You're elderly in your 30s. She mocked me with those words. To 25-year-old Marissa, I, at 32, might seem old. But what about Norma? And Marcus, her beloved, is 36, more than a decade older than her. Yet, weighed down by the daily chores and caring for Mel, I couldn't muster the energy to retort. Incidentally, Marcus has the kind of looks that could make him a model if not for his aloofness, appearing quite youthful. Marissa is deeply in love with such a Marcus, acting all cute and lovely in front of him. So, there would be no scorn or dumping of chores if Marcus was around, but, being busy, he always comes home late and is unaware of the situation. Oh, Mel. Are you trying to comfort me? The only ally I have is Mel, who, feeling attached, is licking my hand even now. Mel's presence is also a reason I can't leave this house. Without me, Mel would quickly decline. All I could do was fret over the current situation.
Let's take a break.
Between household chores and taking care of Mel, I was utterly exhausted. Mel is still okay. He's become my source of comfort, after all. But being burdened with all the household chores, lately, I've been ordered to redo laundry because the folding wasn't to their liking or the seasoning wasn't right. And then they go out to eat or buy new clothes, making my efforts all for naught. Completely drained mentally, I decided to lie down for a break, just 3 minutes. As I was drifting off with Mel snuggling up to me, feeling his warmth.
Ouch!
A sharp pain shot through my back.
Quit loafing around, you useless old hag!
Another dull thud hit my back. As I involuntarily groaned and turned around, Marissa had stuck out her foot. Then, thuds kept hitting my back repeatedly. I heard Mel barking at Marissa, trying to protect me.
Ugh, so annoying. I'm going out for a bit,
Marissa said before leaving. Stunned by the unexpected pain, I was immobilized. Then, my mother-in-law Norma approached me.
Don't just lie there in the way. You're a nuisance,
Norma said, her words unkind and her gaze full of inconvenience, causing tears to spill from my eyes. Sensing my distress, Mel growled at Norma. Oh, scary, scary. Train that thing properly.
Unlike you, I'll be going shopping with the lovely Marissa.
Norma left without helping me. My only ally was Mel, who looked worried and licked my face. Help me. Nathan. I could only call out for Nathan, who wasn't here. After they had gone, I heard the front door burst open and sensed someone rushing in. Unable to move due to the pain in my back.
Are you okay?
An unexpected person came to my rescue.
Why? I saw everything that happened.
The one who lifted me up was Marcus, pointing at a pet camera. Actually, there was a pet camera in the room, brought by Marcus for Mel.
I thought I'd look at Mel on the pet camera to get some comfort during my break.
This pet camera could be checked from a smartphone. And it had become a habit for Marcus to watch Mel during his breaks. Today, he saw everything that happened with me, Marissa, and Norma, and hurried back home after getting permission from his workplace.
I'm truly sorry for what my family did.
Marcus then took me to the hospital. Fortunately, I hadn't fractured anything and didn't need to be hospitalized. But considering my situation, it was decided that I couldn't return to that house, so Marcus arranged for me to stay at the hotel he worked at.
Nathan, it's me. Come to the hotel I'm about to tell you as soon as you can. I'll let the hotel know.
Marcus immediately contacted Nathan and offered to pay for the stay. Initially hesitant, but, please, just let me make this right. And if those two contact you, you can ignore them. Hearing this, I decided to accept his help. Afterwards, as soon as I lay down on the fluffy bed, I fell asleep almost instantly. When I woke up, it was evening, and the sound of my ringing smartphone woke me.
Excuse me, Nathan has arrived, so I brought him. Olivia, are you okay?
Nathan. Tears nearly spilled at the sight of Nathan rushing over to me. Nathan and Marcus, both showing concern for me. Suddenly, Marcus's gaze shifted to my continuously ringing smartphone. Olivia, sorry. I'll answer it. After saying that, Marcus took my smartphone. He immediately put it on speaker, so we all could hear the voice.
Where have you gone? And ignoring my calls. If you have time to play, then hurry back and start cooking. Today we're having something luxurious.
Marissa. With just one word from Marcus, Marissa's complaints came to a halt.
Marcus.
The words that followed were trembling. She probably never expected Marcus to answer.
Why is Marcus? Pet camera. I saw everything you did. No way. Stay quiet at home until I return. Tell Mom the same.
With that, Marcus ended the call and handed me back the phone. His cold tone towards Marissa contrasted with his genuinely concerned expression for me. Then, I was going to stay in the hotel with Nathan tonight and return home temporarily tomorrow. After sorting out some work, Marcus opened up about his feelings.
To be honest, I detest my mom internally.
It seemed Marcus was fed up with Norma's suffocating love and meddling in everything. Thanks to his late father-in-law, he had managed to escape home and live and work at a distant hotel. But, being forced into marriage, he was sent back home and thus stayed late at work to avoid being at home as much as possible.
Apparently, Marissa fell in love with me at first sight, and my marriage was arranged by her and my father-in-law, who is a hotel owner. What does that mean? If they married me off to their daughter, they'd transfer me to a hotel being built near our home. That way, we could live together again.
So, to Norma, Marissa was a dear ally who had brought Marcus back home, a benefactor for getting him to return. That's why she favored her so much. And for Marcus, home must have felt suffocating. He might be expressionless at home, but at work, Marcus always had a gentle and wonderful smile. Being at home must have been really stressful.
What will you do now, Olivia?
Why don't you come with me on my business trip? I'd love to, more than anything. I told them both about the important item that Norma had hidden. Immediately, both showed angry expressions, truly brothers.
Mom. I'll never forgive her.
We'll definitely get it back tomorrow. Go with Nathan and don't worry. Encouraged by Marcus's words, I nodded. The next day, taking a day off, Nathan, Marcus, and I returned home together.
Do you understand what you've done? How dare you hurt someone important to me? I'll never forgive you.
That's...
Both of you, calm down.
Now it was 2 against 3, a complete reversal of the situation. By the way, I had recorded all the previous verbal abuse. Hearing it, Nathan and Marcus looked so menacing, I was scared myself.
Olivia is not your housekeeper. She will go with Nathan to the business trip. I'm utterly disappointed in you.
That's because Olivia tricked. When Marissa tried to retort, Mel growled lowly at her. Mel, who had not shown himself since we arrived. In his mouth, he was carrying something.
That's...
What Mel had was my precious item, a ring that belonged to my mother. I had kept it safe, but Norma had taken it without permission.
Mel found it for me.
Overwhelmed, I petted Mel, and he happily wagged his tail. This dog was like an angel to me. Marcus, who had been smiling gently at us, turned back to Norma and the rest with a blank expression.
If you object, I'm willing to consider divorce and separation. No way! We wouldn't object.
At Marcus's words, both raised their voices in what sounded like screams. Neither wanted to be separated from Marcus, it seems. The acceptance was so straightforward it was anticlimactic. As I was about to pack my things and leave.
Olivia, if you don't mind, could you take Mel with you? Really?
Mel was whimpering sadly at my feet. I wanted to take him if I could. But Mel was supposed to be Marcus's source of comfort too.
It's better for Mel to go with Olivia. If it's not too much to ask, I'd appreciate it if I could see him occasionally. Of course. Thank you so much.
I thanked Marcus and left the in-laws' house with Nathan and Mel. For now, we decided to stay at a hotel within the same chain that allows pets. Because Nathan's temporary housing at his business trip location doesn't allow pets. The hotel arrangements were made by Marcus and Marissa's mother. It turns out the hotel business belongs to Marissa's maternal family. Marissa turned out the way she did because her father, who married into the family, spoiled her. On the other hand, her mother is strict, and not wanting to live with her, Marissa agreed to live with Norma. And now, her mother has arranged a new house for us as compensation for the trouble Marissa caused, as part of the divorce settlement.
Is this really okay?
Why not? If we didn't accept, we'd be apologizing forever. So, we gratefully accepted. Then, Nathan talked with his company and decided to stay at the branch office of his business trip location. A new employee with the same qualifications as Nathan has become independent at the headquarters, so the transfer was approved. Moreover, I was allowed to return to work at the branch office.
What about Norma and Marissa? Marcus, me, and her mom took care of scolding them.
I hadn't been to the in-laws' house because I was focusing on preparing for work and treatment, but afterward, the three of them went there to lecture Norma, Marissa, and Marissa's father. The trio was reportedly in tears, apologizing profusely. And as part of the divorce settlement, Norma and Marissa were made to work as cleaning staff at the hotel. Marissa's dad, wanting to avoid divorce at all costs, couldn't assist Marissa.
Marcus said he keeps them in line by threatening divorce or separation whenever they start to complain.
Thanks to Marcus keeping an eye on them, the compensation money from the divorce settlement has started coming in little by little. Buying treats for Mel with that money always brings him joy and comfort. Sometime after the incident, I received a call from Marissa.
Please, convince Marcus.
Apparently, Marcus had filed for divorce from Marissa after a portion of the settlement money was paid. Additionally, because they had moved out of the family home, both seemed to have lost their minds. Despite repeated pleas to reconsider and come back, they were ignored, and eventually, their contact was blocked.
I'm really serious about Marcus.
So, about Marcus? Your phrasing makes it sound like there are others. Marissa let out a regretful sound. It seemed she had dug her own grave, and I couldn't help but smile. That's not what I meant.
Don't worry. I'll make sure to mention this to Marcus. Goodbye.
Right before the call ended, I could hear Marissa's scream. Thinking, serves you right. I reached out to Marcus.
Olivia, what's wrong? Did my ex-wife do something?
I almost laughed at Marcus's immediate concern. Marissa might be seeing another man. Oh, that sounds worth investigating. Thank you for the information. After finishing my call with Marcus, Norma reached out next. I picked up the phone, somewhat amused, wondering what she would say.
Do you know where Marcus has gone? Well, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. What's that supposed to mean? Give me back my Marcus. I'll leave you with one last piece of advice. Marcus says he dislikes you.
After kindly informing her, I heard Norma's stunned voice.
That's a lie. Just telling you the truth.
I replied and hung up. Imagining Norma's probable meltdown made me want to burst out laughing. At that moment, Mel came up to me, tilting his head and playfully engaging. Then, I heard that Marcus had successfully demanded the divorce settlement from Marissa. Marissa tried to appeal to her dad, but given that he was divorced from her mom, no help was forthcoming. Without Marcus, Marissa saw no reason to stay in the in-laws' house, but had nowhere else to go. Norma, thoroughly disliked by Marcus because of Marissa, wanted to kick her out but couldn't afford to lose another breadwinner. So, they ended up living together, hurling insults at each other, as Marcus, now free and relieved, informed me. On another note, I received wonderful news. Olivia. What's the baby's gender?
Looks like it's a boy. Really? Wow, I can't wait to meet him.
Not long after leaving the in-laws' house, I discovered I was pregnant with Nathan's child. The absence of Norma's stress seemed to have welcomed the baby into our lives. Mel, sensing our happiness, joined in the celebration. Furthermore, I heard about an engagement from the ever-helpful Marcus. He was always opposed by Mom and forcibly separated. Marcus originally had a partner, but due to being forcibly married, they had split up. This time, he was able to reconcile with his ex-girlfriend and plans to marry her soon to ensure they won't be separated again. While preparing for the wedding, Marcus, who started training as a manager under Marissa's mother, seemed busy but had a genuine smile on his face. Then, I gave birth to our adorable son. Nathan has been very supportive with household chores and childcare, always taking action before I even need to ask, which has been a huge help. Mel loves his little brother too and rushes over to soothe him whenever he cries. Nathan and I found great comfort in their actions. Marcus, now far removed from his time in the in-laws' house, is enjoying his postponed newlywed life with a smile, alongside his new wife. His wife and I get along well, building a much better relationship than I ever had with Marissa. She's also a kind person who offers me help.
Hey Nathan, can I go help out this time?
Yeah, I'll come too. When our son was a bit older, we found out that Marcus's wife was pregnant. Now it was my turn to be there for her. This giving and receiving of help. I believe this is what family should truly be like. One shouldn't cling or depend entirely on someone else. And certainly, berating or resorting to violence is out of the question. To ensure Norma doesn't become a negative example of spoiling her beloved son too much. I swore that deeply in my heart.
Oh, you're the famous photographer. Are you here for a shoot today?
The woman in front of me stared at me excitedly. She, whom I met at the beach during clamming season, seemed to know I was a photographer. Despite being busy playing in the sand with her family of 3, she listened to my story with great interest. It's deeply moving to recall my early days as a photographer, when I struggled to gain credibility and couldn't get any assignments. When I told her I was here for a shoot, she eagerly volunteered to be my subject.
But could you please make sure not to show my child's face?
She said this, pointing to a cute little girl. The girl, about 2 or 3 years old, looked at us with wide, round eyes. Of course. What about you? As I asked, the father looked pale and darted his eyes around, repeating vague responses. It's understandable, I guess. After all, the father building a sandcastle with the girl is my husband. My name is Sophia. A 30-year-old freelance photographer. Most of my work involves school events and weddings in the area. I capture moments brimming with smiles and friendship, sharing them through my photos. It's not just about taking pictures, but about capturing people's memories and emotions, sharing happiness. Capturing these joyful moments of people is my job and my passion. But, my life's shutter stopped in an instant due to an unforeseen event. My husband, Oliver, was a busy businessman. Involved in developing leisure facilities and tourist spots, he traveled all over the country. Though we rarely had time together, the moments we shared were special. Even the briefest times with him, his smiles were what kept me going. I never intended to quit my photography. We promised to support each other, build our careers, and got married. I took the opportunity to work style from traveling around the countries to work from home. Starting with posting landscape and permitted portraits on social media. As virtual galleries and online exhibitions expanded my reach, not just among publishers and peers but also among a general audience, my followers rapidly increased. On social media, where I could do live streams, I began to earn from talking shows and explanations about my photographs. It was fulfilling and enjoyable that I told the backgrounds or discussed techniques sharing my photos. Steadily growing my followers, I balanced outdoor shoots with social media promotions. Oliver was still constantly on business trips. I inevitably spent more time with my in-laws, James and Emma, who showed interest in my social media activities. Teaching them how to use smartphones and social media, we grew closer, and they often tuned into my photos and live streams. Both are wonderful people who ensure my fulfilling days. The company kept me from feeling lonely while my husband was away. However, there was a significant void in our lives. We couldn't have children. Despite numerous tests, it just wasn't happening. As we both wanted kids, we were upset because we just couldn't seem to have a baby for years. And it started affecting us. Oliver, who once supportive, grew tired of the financial strain and frequent hospital visits, and became increasingly discouraged about infertility treatment. At that time, his project enters the climax, so he stays away from home for days, traveling around the countries. It was clear that his focus shifted from our childlessness to his challenging work. His concern for my inability to conceive diminished, replaced by work talks. I felt lonely but tried to understand his busyness. Yet, no matter how understanding, we weren't emotionally close.
Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client, and it looks like a new project is starting. I'll probably be away for a while starting next week.
He said this, taking shirts and other laundry from his large suitcase. I had just gotten back home, but still, I hurried to start the washing machine for them. Oliver, when he runs out of clean clothes, rather than doing laundry or sending them for cleaning, he just buys new shirts. He says it's faster and foolproof, but I prefer to save where we can.
So, what about the hospital? That's impossible. I have to go too, right? I can't take off work, and next week is a no-go for me.
I sighed softly, making sure my husband couldn't hear. I had made a hospital appointment, but there's nothing I can do if he's out on a business trip. It would be inconvenient for his company, and I was happy that his hard work was being recognized. I didn't want to be a nuisance.
Well, but I'm busy too, and it's tough. You also out working on a shoot, right? Let's both keep up the hard work.
Yeah. Take care of yourself too, Oliver. I was dismissed so easily, yet I didn't speak my mind. Maybe he doesn't want kids anymore. But I'm too scared to ask if that's really the case. Should I just accept it quietly, or should I bring it up, even if it's roundabout? I'm torn. I'm good at capturing people's joy and sorrow through my camera. But now, I'm just going through the days, not even aware of my own feelings. I feel like I'm getting trapped inside the frames of my photos. Then, one day, a well-textured white envelope arrived at our house, with a logo of a famous resort company on it. It didn't seem like just another piece of direct mail, so I hurriedly opened it. Inside was a voucher for a stay at a luxury hotel by the sea. And it appeared to be for 3 people. Why was this sent to us? With a sense of foreboding, I quickly went to my husband. Oliver, this came in the mail. Do you know anything about it? Of course, I wasn't accusing him from the start. I made sure to ask in a way that didn't sound confrontational, just casual. He stopped reading his newspaper and looked at me. His expression was blank, but his eyes narrowed slightly, almost glaring. I'd never been looked at like that before, and I couldn't hide the chill in my heart.
Oh, that. A colleague couldn't make it, so it was booked in my name. It's nothing weird, so give it back.
He reached for it. Without saying a word, I handed over the envelope and tickets. Oliver snatched them from me. But when he saw the name on it, he looked back at me, clearly annoyed this time.
This is addressed to me, right? Don't open my mail without asking.
I was taken aback and quickly apologized. But with my husband in sales, various DMs arrive. I've been disposing of the ones that come home without much thought, so I was surprised at his reaction.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if it was direct mail, just wanted to check.
I'm here today, you could have just asked me. He took the envelope to his room, and I couldn't ask any more about the tickets. I wasn't fully convinced why he had to book tickets for his colleague, but I had no choice but to accept his explanation. But then, not even half a month later, something else happened. It was May, approaching our wedding anniversary. We were supposed to gather at the in-laws' house, but he suddenly announced a long business trip. At first, I was speechless and confused. A business trip? On our wedding anniversary? In my job, I often get requests for family portraits or landscape photography. But I had plans, so I had taken the day off. Normally, a regular company, including Oliver's, would be off on Memorial Day. At least, his company should be closed as usual. He shrugged his shoulders lightly and forced a smile. It was a sudden decision, had to be done. I can't help but work through the holiday, so please go to the gathering for me. I know he's proud of his job and has been serious about his career since before we got married. But gradually, I find myself less convinced by his reasons for work and business trips in those casual moments. In the end, he just pulls along his favorite suitcase and leaves for work. Although they were angry at his attitude, because his call was so late that it was close to our wedding anniversary, they tried to make me comfortable. Sorry for making you free up your schedule in vain. I'll give Oliver a strict talking to next time I see him. Emma said that, but all I could do was give a wry smile. Originally, we were supposed to stay a few days after getting together. Oliver was the only child for them. I was told it would be sad if I left early, so I decided to stay a few days after our wedding anniversary as planned. I brought my camera and took pictures of them doing housework and everyday life, and scenes I usually don't focus on. I spent time thinking about shooting plans, but part of me felt the void of Oliver's absence. For work and a change of pace, I decided to visit the coast one station away. Around Memorial Day, the beach is busy with people clam digging and families enjoying their time. Some opened colorful beach umbrellas, enjoying walks and sunbathing. I walked along the beach with my camera around my neck. Suddenly, I stopped, noticing a family building a sandcastle. I paused at a familiar voice. I was glad I wasn't holding the camera in my hand. I thought that right in front of that scene, I wouldn't have been able to keep from dropping something. There was Oliver, with a young woman and a toddler, surrounding a sandcastle. They looked like a happy family, gathering white sand and shells. I couldn't believe my eyes. But then, the hotel tickets that arrived home, his frequent long business trips, his indifference, all came back to me. It would have been an ideal family scene for a photo shoot if it were a work assignment. But I couldn't believe my own husband was in it. The toddler, maybe 2 or 3 years old, seemed to match the time when I felt Oliver drifting away. He already had another family. Whether his real child or not, my intuition as a wife told me there was a blood connection. I felt like a glass frame in my heart was shattering. The photo inside that frame was supposed to be full of our happy smiles. I decided to speak up. Not to Oliver, but to the woman playing with the toddler. The woman, wearing a large straw hat, looked surprised as I suddenly spoke to her. I managed a smile and apologized for the abruptness. Then I pulled out my business card, explaining I'm a freelance photographer. My card only had my professional name, but also included my social media contact details. The woman looked interestedly at the card, then started searching for me on her mobile phone. Meanwhile, Oliver, fully aware of me, stared frozen at a point on the sand. Would you mind if I take a photo of your family? I sometimes do live streams showing photography tips.
What? Sophia, I know you. I follow you. You post tips for mobile photography, right?
She was excited, unaware of my situation, happy to be approached by a minor celebrity on social media. I was surprised she was a follower, but her enthusiasm seemed to extend to agreeing to a live stream as well. When I boldly invited her, she was all in before I could finish.
Of course!
Exclaimed, overjoyed. I felt guilty for deceiving, but my goal was to somehow document the other family Oliver had.
Can you teach me some photography tricks for mothers? Oliver, you're okay with that, right?
Oliver, caught off guard, was in a panic. I could tell he was desperately trying to avoid looking at me and thinking of an excuse. Maybe we shouldn't, show faces.
I do model for brochures, Oh, could you make sure not to include the child?
Later I learned that the other woman, Amelia, was a model he met through his company's PR work. Of course, I agreed, carefully adjusting the mobile phone camera to keep the child out of the frame. I set up for immediate streaming and started a live broadcast under the guise of teaching Mother Amelia. With the child out of the picture, Oliver, who was attending to her, became the center of the screen. His strange smile was interpreted positively by viewers, quickly spreading as him being cute but nervous. After the live stream, I thanked them and left. But it wasn't long before Oliver chased after me and stopped me. He had left Amelia and the child behind. I just asked him,
"What are you thinking?"
But he just stood there, sullenly silent. Probably, being with Amelia was awkward, so he ran to me. What did he intend by stopping me? Finally, he spoke. "Sophia, please understand.
How can I understand without a proper explanation? Well, I can guess after seeing.
But I had no choice. I had a child with her before we had one. It's fine. Amelia's family is wealthy, and she said she doesn't need to marry me." Oliver finally confessed the truth, defiantly. I couldn't believe a young woman who got pregnant would say something so convenient. Probably, she knew he was married. "I wanted a child. But you couldn't have one. She is nice and honest, and the child is adorable, looks just like her. But that doesn't mean I've come to dislike you or hate living with you." His words were incoherent, leaving me at a loss. He seemed to argue for maintaining the status quo. "I won't trouble you. This situation is perfect for me. Isn't this good enough?" As if that's an excuse. I should have argued back. But I was so overwhelmed with pain, I lost my voice. My husband, seeing me silent, sighed as if he had convinced me, and was about to leave. But then, unexpectedly, two people arrived. It was James and Emma.
"Oliver, who is that woman and child?"
James, red-faced, shouted. Oliver was shocked by the sudden appearance of his parents.
"What? Why? I saw it on the live stream notification. Who is this long business trip with? Skipping home visits, with an unknown woman, and even a child."
Before James could stop her, Emma stepped between Oliver and me, protecting me, sharply addressing Oliver. I was also shocked. They had seen the live stream on social media and realized something terrible was happening. Shocked by the sight of Oliver appearing as a couple with an unknown woman, they rushed over. Confronted by his parents, he ended up confessing everything about his relationship with Amelia and their child.
Such a disgrace to the family.
He was struck by a strong slap from Emma, who was rendered speechless. James glared at him with an expression so terrifying that I thought he would have punched him if not for the slap. They left Oliver behind and took me to their car. Following their apologies and strong recommendation, I decided to divorce. After exposing Oliver and his affair with Amelia and securing compensation from them, things settled down for a while. However, as the divorce proceedings and investigations went on, various truths came to light. Firstly, Amelia truly knew Oliver was married. Given her willingness to have a child without marriage, it seemed she had prepared herself to some extent for a relationship with a married man. She had tried to keep the issue under wraps not just for money, but probably to keep Oliver around as long as possible. Upon realizing this, she became outraged and blocked all my social media accounts. Not only that, she started posting recklessly on various platforms, inadvertently revealing herself as the other woman, which only garnered sympathy for me. Her relationship with a married man caused trouble in her family home. Being driven out and nearly losing her home, she brazenly tried to live in my former in-laws' house. Naturally, they firmly refused to let her set foot on their property. Next, Oliver's secrets began to unravel. During the compensation claim investigation, numerous women and men connected to him came forward. It turned out he had repeated affairs during his business trips, with several partners over multiple occasions. Some of these affairs involved women who were engaged or married. I decided to send the data from the infamous live stream. A little investigation would reveal that I, the legitimate wife, was the streamer, and the people on camera were Oliver's mistress and their child. As a result, women who were deceived into thinking he was single and husbands whose wives were taken from them became angry and sued Oliver. He faced lawsuits from many people, including me, with no choice but to accept them all. As the truth about my husband continued to emerge, Amelia fled with her child. Probably fed up, she chose to escape from her relationship with him. The turmoil she caused on social media calmed down, and her accounts disappeared, so I decided to let her be. However, considering her nature of boasting about affairs on social media, it was unlikely she would just disappear. Sure enough, Amelia started posting under a completely different account. But her posts, portraying herself as a tragic heroine, were quickly identified and sparked outrage. Subsequently, she would delete her account when things got bad and create new ones, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Abandoned even by Amelia, Oliver apparently turned to his parents in the end, but their learning about his multiple affairs infuriated them further. Without any apology and only asking for help because he was in trouble, the parents-in-law decided to sever ties with their son. After the infidelity scandal, Oliver was burdened with a significant amount of compensation. As legal proceedings progressed, inquiries from mistresses and their husbands poured into his company, complicating the situation further. Worse still, this wasn't the worst outcome. His face being exposed on social media and the revelation of a child from an affair was an unprecedented scandal, especially since it happened during a business trip. The information spread quickly, and comments of shock and anger flooded related facilities and reviews associated with his company. The drop in trust due to the scandal spread both internally and externally, prompting the management to feel a sense of crisis and rush to devise strategies. However, not being familiar with crisis management, they were forced to hastily consult experts and develop communication strategies. Meanwhile, they instructed employees to provide accurate information, desperately trying to quell the confusion. The scandal led to numerous inquiries and criticisms from both inside and outside the company, rapidly tarnishing Oliver's reputation. He became an outcast at work, completely isolated within the company. In an uncomfortable atmosphere, the company soon wished for his resignation, and Oliver had to look for a new job. He was competent and had good sales performance. Preferred by older generations who don't use social media, he quickly found a new job. But human nature doesn't change. In less than 6 months, he was rumored to have made advances on the manager's wife and tried to expense motel charges from a business trip. He was fired and, even after joining new companies, kept causing troubles in his relationships and getting dismissed. After repeating this cycle, he is now hopping from one industry to another, being driven out from everywhere. Meanwhile, I maintained a relationship with my parents-in-law even after the divorce. Thanks to their care, I have been living peaceful days. It's because of their support that I was able to start anew after my relationship with Oliver ended. For a while after the divorce, I found it painful to take photos of children. Even though they got hurt betrayed by their son, they made an effort to show their good relationship and supported me. They helped me realize that my relationship with Oliver wasn't everything about marriage. They cared to give me the strength to believe again. One day, I captured a photo of my parents-in-law talking peacefully. I plan to feature this photo in my next online photo exhibition. They were quite embarrassed, but I think they'll be happy in the end.
Emily saw it, you know. You were at a restaurant bar planning a trip with another woman. Oh, I see. And? So what? Even when caught cheating, my husband Donald wouldn't drop his defiant attitude. In a moment, what we had built over 15 years crumbled away. In this day and age, I was a full-time homemaker and we were living with his parents just like every other year. I had given up the job I loved at a publishing company where I felt fulfilled, and now I spend half of the week accompanying my parents to the hospital and adjusting meals according to everyone's schedule. I was living a life much like a housemaid after getting married. I had no time for myself. The only place I could relax was in our bedroom, even in this spacious house. Despite all this, I had chosen this life because I wanted to be with my husband. The option of leaving never crossed my mind, so when my adulterous husband said, "We can get a divorce, you know," I was at a loss for words, feeling more amazed than angry. This is the story of me, Sophie Johnson, turning 40 this year and leaving my husband, Donald, with whom I lived for 15 years, and starting my life from scratch. It all started 2 months ago, on the 25th. That day was payday for him, who worked at an electronics manufacturer. Usually, his salary would be deposited into our joint account. I would use that money to pay our monthly bills and give him an allowance in the evening. However, 2 months ago, his salary wasn't deposited into our joint account. I thought there must have been some technical glitch, so when he got home in the evening, I asked him about it. "What do you mean you changed the deposit account?" Without saying anything to me, he had switched the account to his personal one. "But what about our payments? These bills are due on the 27th. I couldn't keep up with the sudden change and just thought of immediate concern without thinking. "Just let me know how much you need and I'll transfer that amount into the joint account." He said so, and taking off his suit with his back turned to me. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "So why did you change it?" I couldn't think of any reason. In the 15 years we'd been together, we had never changed the account. We were saving in our joint account, so it wouldn't be a problem if his transfer was late. It's not that our bills would fall behind, so maybe I didn't need to press the issue, but I couldn't help wondering, why didn't he trust me with our finances? Did I do something wrong? I didn't remember overspending, but I thought maybe I had unknowingly upset him. If so, I needed to apologize. That's what I thought when I asked him, but it seems like he thought I was blaming him. He threw his freshly removed shirt onto the couch and glared at me. "It's my hard-earned money, isn't it?" "Yes, it is, but..." "Why do I need your permission to use it?" What? I couldn't understand any of his words. I'd been giving him $500 allowance every month, but that was just a temporary arrangement. If his expenses piled up, I would give him more. I asked him what he spent his money on, but I'd never refused to give him more when he needed. As a stay-at-home wife, there have been times when I asked if I could buy something I wanted, but the reverse never happened. "I don't need dinner today." "What?" "But I already prepared..." "Never mind. I'll eat out." He got bent out of shape, grabbed his car keys, and went out again. He seemed strange. For the past 15 years, we've never had issues over money. But suddenly he starts saying it's his money. While cleaning up the food I had prepared, I was upset at my husband's selfish actions. I was frustrated that despite having food at home, he chose to eat out anyway, because now he was in charge of the finances. From that moment, he began eating out every night and coming home late at night after I fell asleep. Also, the number of days he told me he was staying at work overnight increased. The fight had completely escalated. Even when we were together, we didn't talk more than necessary. As time passed, it was hard to find a chance to make up, and I started blaming myself. We'd never had a fight last this long before. It was a minor issue that he changed the bank account without consulting me. If he wants to manage the finances, that's fine. After about 2 weeks of awkwardness, I began to reconsider like that. Then one day, I received a message from Emily, who was my colleague when I worked as a publisher. "Hey, how are you doing? How about lunch soon?" We used to go out for drinks after work and spend our days off together when we were single. We both have families now, so we don't contact each other as much, but we try to meet at least once or twice a year. Her invitation came at a good time. I agreed readily. So 2 days later in the afternoon, She and I were sitting in a cafe in the next town. So they moved into the care facility, huh? Yeah, both of them, in the same place. She asked how things were going, and I told her about what happened a few months ago. It was about my parents-in-law moving into a nursing home. I know I shouldn't say this, but it's a good thing. It must be a relief for you. She looked pleased. She had been worried about me because I never had time for myself, so it seemed she was relieved now. Well, I do have to get their clothes, visit and accompany them to their doctor's appointments, but still, my life has become a lot easier. This was the first time since I was single that I was able to casually make time to meet with a friend. You're such a dutiful daughter-in-law. Is Donald still hands-off? Yes, he seems to want to do nothing on his days off. He never wanted to go anywhere on his days off. In these 15 years, we've never even gone shopping together. Her husband is diligent. He picks her up in his car when it rains and sometimes even does the shopping for her. He never changed at all. Well, since I am a stay-at-home wife. But at least he could take care of his own parents. She has never thought highly of my husband. We both had a job when we got married, but he never helped with the household chores. There were days when I was too tired to do housework. He found it unbelievable and suggested I become a stay-at-home wife. I didn't want to quit, but I resigned as he suggested. Becoming a full-time homemaker, I was soon asked to live with his parents, and I ended up taking care of them. The reason I couldn't talk back to my husband was because of the significant difference in our incomes. He is 8 years older than me. By that time, he already held a position at his company, and his income was more than double mine. Can you earn as much as I do? If you can, I wouldn't mind quitting. He'd say it like that and made me speechless. I discussed my true desires of not wanting to quit my job with her. I even cried on the phone, overwhelmed by having no time for myself, and I understand if she holds a negative view of him, it's because of my venting. After a while, the ordered warm vegetable salad arrived. She, serving it on smaller plates, opened her mouth again. So, how are things with him? Upon being asked, I thought for a while and nodded affirmatively. I'd actually come to discuss that we'd had a big fight, but I didn't want him to be seen in a worse light. Emily paused with holding the serving tongs and stared at me, who only managed to nod in response. Keeping my smile to not arouse suspicion, she stopped serving the salad midway. I'm sorry, I asked it in a wrong way. Sophie, things aren't going well with him, are they? She spoke as if she knew something. As I was left flustered and unable to respond, she started talking about something that had happened a few days ago. That day, she was apparently at a dining bar near her office for a work after-party, and when she went to use the restroom, she passed a man in the aisle who turned out to be my husband. He didn't seem to recognize her, so she decided against calling out to him, but noticing that he was in casual clothes made her wonder if he was with me. After leaving the restroom, she decided to take a look at where he was seated, but what she saw was him having drinks with a woman who wasn't me. Then I realized that instantly. He's cheating on you. They were sitting close together, bodies touching as they drank. Was that really my husband? I couldn't believe it. That's because on that day, he hadn't come home due to working overtime, so there was no reason for him to be in casual clothes. Moreover, he seemed genuinely busy lately. Does he even have the time for cheating in his current state? Although we've been on bad terms recently, I can't imagine him resorting to cheating. I just don't see him as that kind of person. Sensing my thoughts, she sighed and added, for the upcoming long weekend, he mentioned going to a place in Malibu. He was showing information about the accommodations on his phone, mentioned something about a prime-grade steak dinner. You could probably find the hotel if you search from there. She started searching for the hotel on her phone, but while at the cafe, I was still hoping that it was just her misunderstanding. However, as soon as I got home, I started looking through his clothes. I don't remember how many clothes he has, so I wouldn't know how many of what item were missing. But I did notice that 2 or 3 of his favorite clothes were missing. Until last year, he would immediately wear it after washing it, and it was always at the front of the drawer when opened. But now it's nowhere to be found, even after searching every corner, the back of the closet, and the drawers of rarely used cabinets, literally everywhere. The only thing that comes to mind is him, who had been working overtime and even working on weekends due to his busy schedule. The look on his face as he told me he had spent a night in the company's restroom because he missed the last train. As I stood in front of the closet, the sound of an incoming email came from my pocket. It was a message from Emily. The email included the URL of a hotel in Malibu. As I stood there in a daze, I slowly pressed the link, and a stay plan with a dinner including prime-grade meat was displayed. I felt dizzy. I felt like I had a bad dream. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe in him, but I couldn't find his favorite shirt. That was a huge blow. 2 days later, the Saturday before a long weekend, he was unusually at home. He was working with the TV on. I placed a cup of coffee near his computer and casually asked, I haven't seen you wearing your favorite t-shirt this year," even though he hadn't taken his eyes off the display when I put down his drink. But at this question, the sound of him typing on the keyboard suddenly stopped. Then he said, "Yeah, I'll wear it sometime," making a point of looking at me as he responded. That was unusual. For the past month since that payday, he had been distant. But now, when asked about his shirt, he was making eye contact. I looked for it, but I couldn't find it, I couldn't judge anything from this reaction. That's why I added this, and he replied, "Isn't it somewhere?" and then looked away, returning to his computer. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Despite saying his favorite shirt was missing, he showed no signs of being troubled. Normally in this kind of situation, he would pretend to be troubled just to make a point that I hadn't taken care of it properly, even if he really didn't need something. Last year, he kept complaining just because it hadn't dried due to the rain. Every bit of change makes everything seem suspicious. When it comes to this, I can't control myself. I can't help but keep going until I get clear answers, often going too far. "You're off for a long weekend, right?" Even though we hadn't made up after our last fight, I couldn't help but ask something more intrusive. "Work." "From when?" "I don't know. There's a business trip. I might have a day off." Was this also a lie? I could only think it was a lie. After all, the past 15 years, he always took time off during the holidays. Emily's words crossed my mind. Going to Malibu, as she said. Mentioned the prime-grade steak, of course, as she also said. The story I heard at the cafe starts to feel real, and I feel a surge of anger welling up within me before I realize it, and I've said it out loud. "Business trip? You mean you're going to Malibu?" Uttering a word that I hadn't asked about, he who had been located froze while staring at the screen. He slowly turned around, but his expression had changed from earlier. With a weary face, he squinted and glared at me. It was the exact same look he had during our fight on that payday. What the hell is going on, really? Rummaging around our room pretending to look for clothes? He sighed heavily. Hearing his words, my lips quivered noticeably. Indeed, I had rummaged through the room, but I found nothing. I couldn't find it, the t-shirt, yet despite that, he said it. Rummaged through his room, he said so. Which means if I had rummaged more, I would have found something that links to Malibu. I still wanted to believe, even while doubting. Emily said she saw it. At the wine bar, you and another woman were planning a trip. The things we had built started to crumble away. "Oh, is that so?" I thought at times like this he would hurriedly make an excuse, but reality was different. He was not flustered at all. He turned away with a defiant look. "So, what's the point?" I was even questioned in return. What does he want to hear? When I became speechless out of disbelief, he piled on words. "Who do you think you are? I'm working hard to earn money, enough for a stay-at-home wife to live comfortably. He yelled at me loudly and my head started to ache. As I placed a hand on my forehead and took a deep breath, "I'm okay with getting a divorce, you know." He uttered those few words. For the past 15 years, no matter what happened, no matter how hard it was, I had tried not to think about it. I was disappointed that he could say it with no hesitation. From that day, he continued to ignore me. Even worse, the moment he found out I knew it, he boldly started communicating right in front of me like, "All right, I'll pick you up at 7 in the morning." The first time it happened, I was dumbfounded. Was he always like this? The person in front of me was a total stranger. As it was, we entered the long weekend and the day of his trip. I was in the car driven by Emily and silently watching him commit infidelity. "Sophie, did you get a shot of him putting his arm around her waist just now?" "Yeah." "You should take as many photos as you can." "Okay." When I told her about my conversation with him on Saturday, she was furious and told me I should break up with such a stupid man. She also suggested that I take photos as proof of his cheating and claim for emotional damages. She spent her much-anticipated weekend for this very purpose. The woman he was cheating with was around late 20s or early 30s, slim figure, wearing revealing clothes. Does he have a thing for her long hair? He stroked her hair over and over with a gentle smile on his face. Since he left the house, I also left promptly and watched everything from when he picked her up from her apartment, even when he stopped by a convenience store to buy breakfast together, even when they started walking arm in arm in front of the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and now they just entered a hotel together. I took pictures of all of it with my phone, but each time I pressed the shutter, I pondered over what I was doing. I knew it, but seeing it with my own eyes made me really sad. But I didn't shed a tear. I just stared at his joyful face. That was my day. "What do we do now? Shall we stay somewhere for the night?" "No, let's head back." It seemed she was planning to stay overnight, but I shook my head. I don't want to waste money I've saved by scrimping on such a thing. I thought our life as a couple had finally started after my in-laws had been placed in a nursing home. We hadn't been able to go on trips until now because we always took care of our parents first, but from now on, we wanted to create memories as a couple. The money I had planned to use for those times. I wonder if I just wasted 15 years. If I knew it would turn out like this, I wouldn't have married. If I knew I would go through this, I would have divorced him a long time ago. I shouldn't have had to endure and try so hard. Today, seeing his smile for the first time in a while, I wanted to redo those 15 years. Though I wanted to cry, I couldn't and just kept sighing. And she had been quietly listening, but suddenly started the car engine and checked the time. "What time is it now? After 3 o'clock?" Then she called somewhere and smiled at me. "Hey, Sophie, let's move out right now." "Eh?" Hello, sorry to bother you during the long weekend. I appreciate your help." I was taken aback by her sudden proposal. She was about to start something. I was so in a panic and I shook my head at her while she was on the phone, but she ignored me and went on saying, "It's all good." From that moment, Emily was very energetic. While driving, she called various places on her car's navigation system and gathered people to come to my house. Then, about 3 hours later, we actually had gotten home in the evening about 2 hours after, but in just 1 hour, all my belongings in the house were packed into cardboard boxes. It was literally unbelievable. "I didn't want to talk about work since you didn't want to quit, Sophie, but I've transferred from a fashion magazine and now am the editor-in-chief of a local magazine." In the car, she made various calls to the moving company and real estate agency she deals with, and also to a lawyer who knows Donald. She had expertly adjusted the schedule so that the service people's visiting times did not clash. I also moved according to her instructions, minute by minute. I packed only my valuables into a box, and the rest were done by the movers while I was introduced to a house that could be moved into within a few days by the real estate agent. For the time being, the belongings were sent to her house. I ended up having to stay with her for a few days. After the truck packed with my things left, I was visited by a lawyer. They gave me advice about things such as claiming alimony after divorce, guiding me towards a method that would be the least burdensome as possible. I was amazed at how much could be done in just a few hours. I knew she was a very active person from when we used to work together, but her ability struck me as incredible. However, looking around the room that was now half empty, anxiety slowly began to creep in. He's definitely going to be mad. The cost of moving was surprisingly low. The studio apartment was affordable and even the consultation with the lawyer was free, yet it was still costing money. I made these moves without consulting with him. I'm sure he'll be furious when he gets back from his trip. As I felt our relationship deteriorating rapidly, I became depressed. Then she slapped my back. Hey, being a homemaker is a respectable job too. The money you've saved from being frugal is also yours. Plus, it's his fault. He said he'd transfer the necessary money, right? So let's have him pay, even for the cost of living on your own. After being strongly persuaded by her, I took one last look around the house. I remembered how, in the early days, I had found it difficult to rearrange things. Now, I just realized I did put my toner on the bathroom vanity with no hesitation. The shoe rack was filled with my shoes. I had always seen myself as a maid, but maybe I had actually become part of the family. After imprinting the image of the home I had lived in for 15 years in my mind, I made up my mind and nodded vigorously at her. And then, on the last day of the long weekend, I left the house I had shared with him. I was still staying at Emily's place. "Where are you at?" I picked up the call from him with a trembling hand, and I was asked that with a grumpy voice. Without answering his question, I said the words Emily and I had decided on beforehand. "You said you were okay with the divorce, right? And that you would transfer the necessary money. I am divorcing you. Please, provide for the cost of me living alone." "What? Stop talking nonsense and come back." He seemed to think this was just a runaway. I cut off his voice and spoke my final words. "Please, have your new partner to take care of your parents from now on. Thank you for 15 years. While he was still talking, I hung up. He called back several times, but I didn't pick it up. I did feel guilty about how I ended things unilaterally like this, but looking back, I had always accepted his unilateral demands ever since we got married. So I tried to think it is fine, at least in the last moment. The following year was a whirlwind. I negotiated with him through a lawyer and was finally able to divorce with alimony and living expenses assured. I had no peace of mind until I found a job, but I've been working as an office clerk at a local factory and slowly buying what I need with my monthly salary. Then, "Sophie, can you make the deadline this month?" "Yeah, I'll make it, but I think I'm going to barely make it by the deadline, so I don't have time to chat on the phone." All right, I'll go now. You have your piece this month, too." 6 months ago, Emily, who manages our local magazine, added a new section about saving money, and as a frugal person, I've been given a chance to write a couple of pages there every month. I gave up on my dream to work in a publishing company. Her arrangements mean a lot to me. Now, I'm a writer, but I have 15 years of experience in budgeting as a homemaker, and I want to share my experiences wholeheartedly. I was able to make a fresh start, but then an unexpected call came in. "It's good to hear your voice. Sounds well." Mother-in-law. My mother-in-law called me from her nursing home. I had said my goodbyes to her before my divorce, but in that time I couldn't talk with her well. I hadn't contacted her since the last time, so I was surprised that she called. After talking about my father-in-law's advanced dementia, she updated me on my ex-husband's situation. "What? He broke up?" "Yes, that's the case. He's foolish, isn't he? Between us, he was dumped before the divorce finalized." "I see. Seems like his relationship with that woman has already ended." "Well, that's expected, isn't it? Any young girl would run if she had to deal with taking care of seniors." "So who is at the home now?" "Donald. He ended up leaving his big corporate job, but he's trying with his complaints. He's such a fool. He was able to work because of his wife supporting him behind. He still doesn't talk about his own infidelity. Sophie, breaking up with him was the right thing to do." My ex-husband hasn't changed, but it seems like he's struggling a bit. I found myself a bit relieved by hearing that. My usual stern mother-in-law chuckled and said, "Sophie, thank you. I was planning to ask you to try again with him when I called, but your voice sounds so lively, so I decided not to ask. In the roughly 15 years we lived together, I'd never had such a long conversation like this with my mother-in-law. Our relationship wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either." I listened to her voice. I assumed this would be the last time I'd hear from her, and I savored every word. It turned out for the best, she said so sadly, and my tears welled up. It's been a year since my divorce. Everything has been going well, and I've managed to make a fresh start. However, I've always felt a lingering sense of regret. It's because I felt that I had wasted 15 years of my life. But then with this phone call, my mother-in-law said it. Thank you, and that she had planned to ask me to try again with her son. There's no chance of getting back together with my ex-husband, but hearing that from his mother made me genuinely happy. It felt like a validation of what I had done for those 15 years. I will never forget this phone call from her. Those 15 years were not wasted, because now I believe that so.
My name is Sabrina. I'm hitting 35, but unfortunately, no wedding plans yet. My parents divorced when we were little, and my mom, Scarlett, raised us all by herself. She's really amazing, you know. Now, she's living off her pension. We talk occasionally, and she never pressures me to marry, just lets me do what I want, which I'm really grateful for. I'd like to get married to ease her mind, but I enjoy my job and always dreamt of being a hard-working career woman. So, I'm thankful for a mom who lets me be me. But enough about me. Actually, I have an older sister named Karen, and unlike me, she's married. Well, it seems she doesn't have kids, but she's still kind of living a student life, always treating herself to trips and buying expensive brands. And her husband Stanley? Well, he's pretty much the same. I always wondered where all their money came from, and it turns out Karen was taking Mom's pension. When Karen got married, she insisted on living with Mom, probably to secure the pension. I've offered many times to live with Mom, but she always says, "I can't burden Sabrina anymore." I'm single and earn well, so supporting Mom alone would be no issue. Then, one day, as I was lazily watching TV on my day off, a show caught my eye. It was about treating parents to a vacation as a token of appreciation. I thought, that's it. Why not invite Mom on a trip? It might be a nice change of pace. Hey Mom, check this out. What's this? Hawaii tickets? What's this about? Don't tell me you met someone special. No, nothing like that. It's a gift for you. For me? Why? Well, you were always too busy raising Karen and me to go on any trips, right? But, no buts. Think of it as a break. It's partly my way of showing gratitude. So, come on. Won't Karen and her husband mind? I knew you'd say that. Huh? Knowing you, you'd worry about upsetting them. I actually wanted it to be just you and me. But I'll invite Karen and Stanley. If they don't want to go, you can enjoy it without any worries. Sabrina, thank you for thinking this far. So, I convinced Mom and decided to go to Hawaii with her and Karen's family. Traveling with them might not be ideal, but it's better than staying under the same roof. Being stuck in that house can be suffocating. When I told Karen about the Hawaii trip, she was surprisingly enthusiastic, but I quickly understood why. So, who's paying for the trip? Obviously, Sabrina, who suggested it, right? For me and Stanley too. Seriously? Lucky! A free trip to Hawaii? Yes! I was speechless at their audacity. We're all adults. Everyone should pay their own way. But I knew reasoning with them was pointless. I intended to pay for Mom's trip, but to avoid more drama, I reluctantly agreed to cover theirs too. The more I heard from them, the more I dreaded the trip. But to give Mom a good time and get her out of that house, I had to go through with it. After agreeing to pay, Karen and her husband were ecstatic. They kept calling me over, fussing about what to wear, where to shop, what to eat, and even insisted on staying in a top-tier suite. I couldn't stand it anymore and left. I really wanted to book a nice hotel just for Mom, but knowing them, they'd make a fuss later. So, we all ended up in a suite. And then came the day of the Hawaii trip. It's getting late. We need to get on the plane soon or we'll miss it. Sabrina, what's good? But hey, why are you wearing such plain clothes when we're heading to a resort? Hey, what's up, Sabrina? Seriously though, what's with that outfit? Looks like a prize from a lottery draw. Hilarious! Incredibly, despite arriving just in time for boarding, neither of them offered an apology. You both are late. We're well past the agreed time. Stop nagging, will you? You're ruining the vacation mood. Yeah, don't be mad, Sabrina. You're ruining your cute face. Hey, Stanley, are you trying to flirt with Sabrina while I'm here? What are you talking about, Karen? You're the only one for me, obviously. Ugh, Stanley, this is embarrassing in public. Karen looks cute when she's shy, too. Stanley, Karen. Unbelievably insensitive people, making a lovey-dovey scene in front of everyone. Mom and I were just flabbergasted. I really don't want to travel with these people. But I swallowed my words, thinking of Mom and not wanting to ruin what should be a fun trip for her. I kept reminding myself, today is for Mom, to make it enjoyable for her. Finally here. Hawaii is so hot. My first time here. Right? Seeing Mom's bright smile for the first time in a while made me happy too. That flight was so long, but we're finally here. Yeah, blue skies, white clouds, it's perfect. Come on, let's not waste time with luggage. Let's go. Right, delicious food awaits us. And cute clothes and accessories too. After arriving in Hawaii, Karen and her husband immediately went off somewhere. I can't believe they still have so much energy after all those shenanigans on the plane. And they had to say luggage loudly enough for us to hear. No gratitude for Mom at all. Well, I knew that already. But honestly, it's a relief not to have to be around Karen and her husband. I decided to enjoy the Hawaii trip, just with Mom. Mom, look! This is so cute. Oh, indeed, a beautiful mug. Let's buy it. We're here after all, right? But we already have cups at home. You've been using those forever. Time for something new. This pattern really suits you, Mom. Really? Well, maybe we should buy it then. Yeah. Oh, and that food over there looks delicious. Shall we check it out? Wow, those fruits are huge. To put it mildly, the Hawaii trip was fantastic. Beautiful scenery, delicious food, unique souvenirs, and cute accessories. I even got a bit carried away, despite my age. This is so fun, right? Aren't you glad we came to Hawaii? But Mom, I've said it before. You should stop living with Karen and them. Come live with me. Wait, Mom? Before I knew it, I'd lost sight of Mom. Did I walk too fast, or was it because I was distracted by the shops? I instantly regretted not paying enough attention to her. I quickly turned back and started searching through the shops we had visited. Mom! Oh, Sabrina! Fortunately, I found Mom quickly. She was sitting on a bench with an unknown man. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I'd left you behind. It's alright. I got distracted by a shop. Is this the daughter you were talking about? Yes, that's right. Sabrina, this man helped me. His name is Scott. Nice to meet you. Sorry for taking your mom to a place like this. Not at all. Thank you so much for helping her out of the crowd. It was a relief that a kind man was there to help. I thanked him repeatedly and apologized to Mom. Mom told me not to worry about it. and she was actually happy to see me, so excited after a long time. Scott's also here on vacation. He's the same age as you, Sabrina. Oh, is that so? Yes, what a coincidence. Are you here alone, Scott? No, I came with friends, but we're doing separate things right now. Oh, no, I have to meet them soon. Thank you so much. Is there anything we can do to repay you? No. It's normal to help someone in trouble. Well then, with that, Scott disappeared into the crowd. At least there were kind people around to help. Just as I was feeling relieved, someone suddenly hit me hard on the back. Ouch! Sabrina! I saw everything! What's going on? Karen? Why are you here? That doesn't matter. What do you mean by this? You left Mom alone, didn't you? Karen, that's not it. It was... Mom, stay quiet. Karen, who appeared out of nowhere, glared at me with anger. Stanley was also there behind her. Her loud voice made people on the busy street turn and look at us. You're the worst! Leaving Mom like that on purpose? Is that how you treat your birth mother? Wait a minute, I didn't leave her. You dare say that? I saw it myself. You were only thinking about yourself and didn't care about Mom. Well, that's... Indeed, I was absorbed in shopping and didn't realize, so I just fell silent. People around us started whispering and pointing at me. Did you hear? She tried to leave her Mom behind. Scary. Why would someone do that? Maybe she thought she could get away with it in a crowded place? Arguing back here would only make her anger grow. I clenched my fists and endured. Karen and Stanley were enjoying making me out to be the villain. They seemed to relish in seeing me being condemned by others while pretending to be righteous. That's just the kind of people they are. Mom tried to say something, but I shook my head at her. If Mom spoke up now, who knows what these two would say to her when we got home. Ah, such a terrible sister. Never do something like that to Mom again. Right on, Karen. You're such a good older sister. Got it? Sabrina, learn from this and never treat Mom like that again. I'd go with Mom to the hotel myself, but I still have things to do. She looks tired, so take her to the hotel quickly. After saying their piece, the two disappeared into the crowd. For a while, people around me looked at me sharply, but eventually they lost interest and dispersed. Sabrina! It's okay. I'm not bothered. Sorry for ruining the fun atmosphere. Come on, let's head back to the hotel. I've booked a nice place. Feeling exhausted, I took Mom back to the hotel. The hotel I splurged on had an ocean view and was on the top floor. It was supposed to be perfect. But I couldn't shake off my uneasy feelings. Karen and her husband are late. Yeah. We were supposed to have dinner at the hotel restaurant tonight, but Karen and her husband never showed up. The restaurant was famous and had fixed meal times. If we waited any longer, we wouldn't have time to eat our dinner. I tried to contact Karen and her husband, but as usual, couldn't reach them. I explained the situation to the restaurant staff and canceled their reservation. Of course, since I had made the reservation, I had to pay for the last-minute cancellation. This trip was supposed to be fun, but now it's ruined. But I couldn't dwell on it forever. I was about to enjoy the delicious food that was about to be served. While Mom was away at the restroom, I overheard a conversation. Wait, what? That can't be! Sorry, but your name isn't on the reservation list. What's wrong, Scott? Kevin! It's just that... It was the man who had helped Mom earlier. He seemed troubled, so I decided to approach him. Hello? Oh, you're... Thank you for finding my mom earlier. Is this the friend you were talking about? Yes, this is Kevin. Hello, Scott told me about you. Hello. You seem to be having some trouble. What happened? Well, embarrassingly, our reservation at this restaurant didn't go through. Really? Yeah, even though I told you I'd handle it. You've always been bad with online stuff. But you booked our flights, so I thought I had to do something. But I guess I shouldn't have. Sorry. Don't worry about it. There are plenty of other great places to eat. We could even go on a food tour. Kevin. Scott seemed nice, and Kevin did too. Hearing their conversation, I came up with a suggestion. If you don't mind sharing a table with us, why don't you eat with us? I was supposed to dine with my sister and her husband, but they didn't show up and I can't reach them. I just canceled their reservation. We have to pay anyway, and it'd be a shame to waste the prepared food. That's really kind, but I couldn't impose. No, please. It would help us out too. We wouldn't have to worry about the restaurant. It was convenient for us. We wouldn't waste money, and honestly, it was a relief. Besides, we owed Scott for helping Mom. Are you sure it's okay? Of course. Then I'll take you up on that offer, but I insist on paying. It's fine, really. It's just the cancellation fee we were going to pay anyway. I can't let a lady pay. That's not how it works. Scott was adamant about not letting me pay. Seeing how different he was from Karen's husband, Stanley, my impression of Scott rapidly improved. Even though we had just met, Scott seemed like a wonderful person. Scott and his friend Kevin were great conversationalists. They were considerate of Mom's slower pace of eating and adjusted their own, showing themselves to be very thoughtful. The conversation flowed so naturally, it didn't feel like we had just met today. I hadn't had this much fun talking to men in a long time. Today was really fun. We enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. Mom, I'll take care of the bill. You go back to the room first. You must be tired. But it's okay. Go ahead. I want to properly apologize for Karen and her husband not showing up. Alright then. Thank you, Sabrina. With that, Mom headed back to the hotel room first. We'll go pay now. We need to explain the situation to them. Really, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's go, Kevin. Sabrina, we'll go ahead. Scott and Kevin then headed towards the cashier. I finished the remaining wine, soaking in the beautiful night view. That's when I heard Karen's shrill voice. Sabrina! What is this all about? Hey, Karen. Wow! What's this all of a sudden? Karen? Stanley! Turning around, I saw Karen and Stanley standing there, but for some reason, Stanley seemed uncomfortable. What's going on? We're hungry, and now you're telling us there's no food? That. Your reservation was canceled. What? I wasn't informed about this! They didn't show up for the reserved time, and they ignored my multiple attempts to contact them. I almost said this, but realized it wouldn't make any difference with these two. Moreover, causing a scene in such a fancy restaurant? That was the last thing I wanted. But they, seemingly lacking any common sense, started yelling at us, oblivious to the other guests. You're such a terrible sister! You have no respect for your elder sister! And the hotel reservation too. I hope you've done that right. Not only leaving Mom behind, but you're planning to leave me too, aren't you? Wait, Karen? Karen's loud accusation startled me. The phrase, leaving Mom behind, made the nearby people start whispering, just like earlier today. Poor Mom! And now she planned to leave her sister too? Don't just say whatever you want. Nobody intended to. What about it? You did leave Mom behind this afternoon. I tried to respond, but the cold stares from the people around me made me freeze. Listening closely, I could hear. Isn't that the girl from this afternoon? Planning something else now. I could hear such murmurs around me. Clearly, some people had witnessed the commotion earlier in the day. This was terrible. I felt like crying. There was no one on my side here. Even if I tried to argue back, the situation was completely in Karen's favor, and no one would listen to me anyway. The murmurs around grew louder. I looked down and bit my lip. That's when it happened. Sabrina would never do such a thing. Who are you? Don't butt into our business. I know it's not good to meddle in others' affairs, but I can't stay silent hearing what you're saying. Scott. Indeed, Sabrina did lose sight of Scarlet, but she searched for her desperately afterwards. I found Scarlet alone, so I know this firsthand. Also, aren't you Sabrina's older sister? You left Scarlet entirely to Sabrina and just went off to have fun, didn't you? You have no right to blame Sabrina. What? And about this restaurant reservation. You didn't show up at the agreed time, and you didn't even contact anyone. Of course your reservation was canceled. This is a famous restaurant, you know? It's not the kind of place where you can show up 2 hours late. Shut up! It's none of your business! Karen's face turned red with anger. I watched in shock. The murmuring and cold glances of the people around shifted towards Karen. Unable to bear it, Karen raised her voice even louder and pointed at me. Shut up! I've been uncomfortable since this Hawaii trip was proposed. Acting all high and mighty over a trip to Hawaii. What do you mean? Weren't you happy when you were invited? Karen, let's just drop it. Not happening. It's all because you were flirting with some girl in Hawaii. That girl we met earlier was his old flame. There's nothing between them now. Scott and I widened our eyes at the information that came out of their conversation. A girl in Hawaii? An old flame? Where do such wild accusations come from? Instead of yelling at me, Karen and Stanley began arguing with each other. Apparently, they met a girl while shopping who turned out to be Stanley's ex-girlfriend. What a scary coincidence. Karen, not liking this, threw a fit. No wonder Stanley was uncomfortable behind Karen. But really, such a fight should be elsewhere, not here. Both of you, please stop. Surprisingly, it was Scott who intervened. Your argument is unpleasant to listen to. It's bothering us and the restaurant's staff. Also, Karen, your attitude towards Sabrina is just taking out your frustrations. You should apologize properly. I was so surprised, I forgot to close my mouth. A person I had just met understood my feelings so well and even confronted Karen and her husband with perfect logic. Though shocked, above all, I was happy that Scott understood me. Karen and her husband looked around as if realizing for the first time that they were in a restaurant. Of course, they had been making a scene with such unreasonable behavior. It was inevitable that they would attract disapproving glances. Most notably, the owner of the restaurant was looking at us. Seeing that the argument had subsided, the owner slowly approached us. You all need to leave immediately. People like you question the dignity of our establishment. Ugh, I'm so sorry. Glared at by the owner, Karen and Stanley quickly left the restaurant. Eventually, Karen and her husband, having drawn too much attention, hurriedly decided to return home, not wanting to stay in Hawaii any longer. Of course, their return tickets were booked for 4 days later, so I made them pay for their own tickets. It seemed they didn't have the courage to ask me to pay for their return trip, especially after the way Scott glared at them. The rest of my trip in Hawaii was modestly put, fantastic. I even got invited by Scott to go shopping. At first, I hesitated because I was with Mom, but Kevin entertained her while Scott and I explored various shops. Kevin, being in caregiving, was really good at keeping Mom engaged in conversation. Mom looked happy, not at all displeased, so I felt comfortable shopping with Scott. The trip ended too quickly, and it was time to go home. Scott and his friends were staying in Hawaii a bit longer, so we exchanged contact information, hoping to meet again. Mom and Kevin teased us a bit, but I chose not to pay much attention to it. Despite everything, it was a fun trip to Hawaii. Mom was going to return to Karen's house, but I stopped her. After what Karen did, I thought it was impossible for Mom to live with Karen and her husband as before. I explained this to Mom, and she agreed, somewhat reluctantly, to stay at my place for the time being. Out of concern, I visited their house once, only to find them arguing loudly inside. What do you mean? Why are you messaging her? It's not what you think, Karen. You're cheating. That's what this message means. And these messages have been going on for over a year. We were already married back then. Wait, it's just a misunderstanding. Shut up, you cheater. I want a divorce. Living together was clearly impossible for them. Their once seemingly close relationship shattered in an instant. I had no intention of intervening, so I left them to their own devices. Unsurprisingly, they ended up divorcing. Karen, emotionally distraught, began performing poorly at work and eventually lost her job. When her income decreased, she came to Mom for help, but of course, I sent her away. Even after persistently bothering us, I threatened to call the police if she continued, and that finally made her leave. Mom and I decided to cut ties with Karen. I don't know much about Karen's current situation, but from what I heard, she's working a cashier job she's never done before, constantly getting scolded by a younger supervisor. I can't help but think she got what she deserved. As for Stanley, he went back to his parents and is working at a company they introduced him to, apparently being used and abused there. It seems he was estranged from his parents, so it's no surprise they're treating him that way. As for me, hey, I saw a ring that would suit you the other day. A ring? Did I say I wanted one? I don't think you did, but I want to give it to you. What do you mean? You'll see, soon. Since we exchanged contacts, Scott and I have been meeting frequently. He's the type of man I've never encountered before, and it's really fun to be with him. In contrast to Karen, my days are enjoyable. My job is going well, and I've had a wonderful encounter. Mom is also happy for me. I want to continue being a good daughter to her.
Do you believe in devils? People who act on their own desires, causing harm to others, might be called devils. Is there really a way to stand against such devils? My name is Scarlett. Looking back, time has flown by so quickly. My daughter Christy, whom I bore and raised, is now over 20 and has decided to get married. Now that I think about it, I was about the same age as Christy is now when I met and married my husband Matthew. A blissful marriage with the love of my life. Back then, I was oblivious to the devil lurking in the shadows of my happiness. This devil was my husband's mother, my mother-in-law, and this devil bore a human name, Marilyn. Scarlett and Christy are here to serve me, to take care of my life. It's all about money, cash, hand it over quickly. When did the devil's cry echo, I wonder? My dad was a lawyer who worked for the socially weak and believed in justice. I have an older brother, George, who admired our dad and aspired to become a lawyer himself, to contribute to the rescue of the underprivileged like him. Influenced by George, I also harbored a desire to do such work. One day, a TV documentary about people fighting for workers' rights and better working conditions caught my eye. These people were labor relations specialists. Learning this, I developed a keen interest in this profession. To become a labor relations specialist, legal studies were essential, so I set my sights on a law school and dedicated myself to studying. George had already made it smoothly into law school and was on track to pass the bar exam. Sometimes I resented not being as smart as George, but I poured my best efforts into my studies. Thanks to my hard work, I was accepted into university, where I learned about law and gradually approached becoming a labor relations specialist. Maybe because I wasn't brilliant as George, the study of law and university exams were quite challenging, but I persevered. Eventually, I graduated, obtained my degree, and got the necessary qualifications. After graduation, I landed a job at a law firm. The CPA exam I passed in high school and the CFP qualification I obtained during college were closely related to the work and laws handled by a labor relations specialist, which seemed to work in my favor during the hiring process. Gaining experience in my job, I realized the societal importance of my work and led a fulfilling life. In the office, there was a senior named Matthew, from whom I learned a great deal. Matthew is earnest, has a strong sense of justice, and above all, he is passionate about his work. At first, our relationship was that of mere respectful colleagues, but as we worked together, I was increasingly drawn to his kindness and reliability. In other words, I began to fall in love with Matthew. And he too started to see me, not just as a junior colleague, but as someone special. Just like water flows from high to low, our relationship naturally progressed into dating and eventually led to a promise of spending a lifetime together. When I shared the news of considering marriage with Matthew, Mom clapped her hands in joy, and Dad, while showing a smile with mixed feelings, blessed us. George, who by then had finished his legal clerkship and become a lawyer, congratulated us too. Smiling besides George was his wife, my sister-in-law. Matthew is an only child, and his father passed away the year before last, leaving him with his mother, Marilyn, at their family home. Before our marriage, a family meeting was arranged. The attendees were, of course, Matthew and I, Marilyn, and both my parents, along with George and his wife. Marilyn, who would become my mother-in-law, is 55 years old, but looks younger for her age. Maybe because of this, her makeup seemed a bit heavy and flashy. But that's a matter of personal taste, and it wasn't excessively flashy or concerning. She was always smiling, repeatedly expressing her happiness about her son's marriage. As greetings ended and conversation flowed, my mom said, "It must be lonely since your husband passed away." "Oh no, not at all. I've actually found freedom in being alone, and I have Matthew with me, so I'm not lonely," Marilyn replied nonchalantly. I thought that would be the end of it, but Marilyn continued. "My husband left a decent fortune, so I don't have any financial troubles. I even invest some of it and get returns. Even if things get tough, Matthew earns quite well as a labor relations specialist, and Scarlett does too, so I have nothing to worry about." There was something off about the way Marilyn spoke with such ease. My parents exchanged glances, and George slightly tilted his head. Marilyn seemed oblivious to their reactions and kept talking. "I hear Scarlett's father and brother are also lawyers, earning quite well. It's an honor to become relatives with such people." "Mother, what are you saying? That's rude." Matthew interjected. With a cool smile, she responded, "Rude? How so? I'm just admiring how great that is. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm happy to become relatives with a wealthy family. I'm just honestly expressing my joy." "Why are you happy about that? It's none of your business, Mother." "After all, if my dear son and his wife ever face any troubles, they could help us out, right? It's reassuring for a parent. If the son and his wife are well off, they can lend a hand if something happens to me. It's a relief for me, you know." "What she's saying seems off. Brown, Vivian, I apologize. My mother might be nervous and saying things that are not quite right. If she's made you feel uncomfortable, please accept my apologies." Matthew interjected, wiping sweat from his brow and trying desperately to smooth over the situation. I tried to help. "Marilyn, it's okay. We plan to live a stable and well-planned life, so we won't face any troubles." Right. Sorry for the unnecessary worry. Yes, just work hard and earn well." However, Marilyn's response was odd too, leaving me at a loss for words, and I froze. Marilyn seemed oblivious to the atmosphere, happily sipping her coffee. That evening, back at home, my family expressed their discomfort about Marilyn. "Is that mother-in-law okay? Is that just her personality, or is she saying those things deliberately?" If it's deliberate, what's her intent? I don't know. She seems to be a completely different type from us. It's incomprehensible to talk about money and wealth in such a setting. Is that normal for her? The family meeting, including my sister-in-law, was filled with questions. Actually, after that family meeting, Marilyn said something to me. As the meeting ended and everyone started to leave, I happened to be the last one with Marilyn. Hey, Scarlett, you're going to live with me after you get married, right? Let's discuss living expenses and housework. It'll be a help for me. After all, Matthew is a boy and can't do any housework. I had never considered living with Marilyn. She is still healthy and not of an age to be considered elderly. I wanted to start my married life with just Matthew, and I thought that was only natural. I didn't tell my parents or George about this interaction, but I mentioned Marilyn's words to Matthew the next day. I never thought about living with Marilyn right after getting married. You're not considering that, are you, Matthew? Of course not. My wish is to build a life just with you after our marriage. And Scarlett, I'm telling you this because it's you, but I can't wait to leave that house. I understood Matthew's feelings, but when I asked him why he was so eager to leave his family's home, he said, You might have felt it during the family meeting, but my mother has an abnormal obsession with money. It was just as my family had suspected. She often demands money from me, saying she raised me, and even specifies a substantial amount as rent every month. Matthew didn't understand why Marilyn was so fixated on money. It might be something she was born with, he thought. As I'm starting a new family with you, I think it's better to keep some distance from my mother. Actually, I want to. Later, Matthew clearly told Marilyn that we would not be living with her. Thus, we could start our sweet married life together in our own place. However, I would later find out that Matthew hadn't told me everything. As we both worked, we decided to contribute equally to our living expenses and save the rest. That was our plan, but the amount Matthew was supposed to put into our joint bank account was consistently short. When I asked him about it, his answer was shocking. Sorry, I've had to send money to Mom, and there are some essential expenses for myself that I can't cut down, so I can't fully contribute to our joint account. Matthew, who had lived at home until marriage, had been depositing a significant amount of money at Marilyn's behest each month. He thought leaving home would end this, but Marilyn insisted on continuing the payments under the guise of remittances. Unconvinced, I decided to confront Marilyn and visited my in-laws' home. Marilyn, I heard that Matthew is sending you money, but isn't that strange? You're well and have father-in-law's inheritance, so why do you need money from Matthew? But Marilyn acted as if it was the most natural thing. What are you talking about? Matthew lived here and paid money every month. I intended to receive money from both after your marriage, but since you refused to live with me, he still owes his duty as a son. In fact, I'm only asking for 1.5 people's share, not 2, so you should be grateful. I couldn't comprehend how she could think like that. Such arbitrary rules, and what duties are you talking about? A son should give money to his mother. That's common sense. Even a son's wife should contribute to her mother-in-law. Don't you know that? Such common sense does not exist. When I firmly denied it, Marilyn's tone changed completely. Marilyn erupted. You ungrateful fool! I was nice to you, and now you've gotten too comfortable. I won't hold back any more. You married my son. I will thoroughly teach you what it means to be a wife. Her eyes narrowed, and although not quite split, her mouth twisted into an ugly shape as she hurled insults at me. I was stunned by this unexpected change and felt a surge of fear. I don't remember much after that. I fled the in-laws' house as if escaping. Back home, I told Matthew what happened. But as I spoke, the fear and shock I had felt resurfaced, and tears overflowed. My mother has an abnormal obsession with money, Matthew explained. and she's become aggressive toward anything that doesn't align with her wishes. Her sudden shift from calm to rage is shocking. Matthew said that from now on, he would handle things, and that I should avoid Marilyn as much as possible. Indeed, I didn't want to have anything to do with Marilyn, but I wondered if it was fair to leave Matthew to deal with her alone. I don't know what discussions took place between Matthew and Marilyn afterward, but Marilyn stopped bothering me. Matthew didn't explain in detail, but it was clear to me. The amount Matthew was sending Marilyn each month had increased. Life seemed calm on the surface, but it wasn't entirely peaceful. Marilyn would regularly come over and talk to Matthew. When I tried to intervene, she would angrily berate me. "I have nothing to discuss with you. Don't interfere in conversations with my son, you fool." This happened repeatedly, and Marilyn always left looking satisfied. Matthew wouldn't share the details, but it was easy to guess he was giving her money. It was frustrating to see Matthew's weak stance towards Marilyn, but seeing his distressed state made me want to protect him. Yet I was at a loss for what to do, and couldn't discuss it with my parents or George. During this time, I became pregnant with Matthew's child and gave birth to our beloved daughter, Christy. My parents and George and his wife were overjoyed and celebrated the birth. George and his wife, having no children themselves, shared our happiness as if it were their own. Marilyn, too, was thrilled about her first grandchild, but for entirely different reasons. "Such a win! We've got a future earner. A boy might earn more, but a girl can marry rich, then you're set. You'll get a hefty celebration gift from Scarlett's family, right? That's like a windfall. Lucky us!" Marilyn only saw her grandchild as a means to gain money. "Hey, give me the celebration gift money. It's a happy occasion after all." Marilyn, for some reason, started to demand money from us after we had our child. "What do you mean? Normally, we should receive a celebration gift from you, Marilyn, right?" "What are you talking about? Listen, you two became parents because I gave birth to Matthew. It's because of me that this celebration event happened. So, I should be the one to receive a celebration gift. Don't you understand? Or are you just stupid?" She spouted this nonsensical logic with a detestable face, and then proceeded to extort money from us. There are too many episodes with Marilyn to narrate them all here. Even as our family suffered under Marilyn's manipulation, our daughter Christy grew up healthy. Having been subjected to Marilyn's influence since she was young, Christy deeply detested her. Our life could have been happy with just the three of us, excluding Marilyn. However, when Christy was 13, tragedy struck our family. Matthew had to undergo a re-examination after a health check, which revealed a significantly advanced malignancy. He passed away after just 3 months of battling the disease. After the solemn funeral, Marilyn's words were jarring. "I expected Matthew to contribute more, but his early passing was unexpected, a real wrench in my plans. But I adapt well. Now, Scarlett, as Matthew's wife, you must serve me. And Christy, grow up fast and marry rich. I'm looking forward to it." Matthew had been a barrier protecting us from Marilyn, but now that he was gone, I felt the full brunt of the onslaught. Marilyn was targeting not just me, but Christy as well. About 3 months after Matthew's funeral, Marilyn suddenly showed up. "I'm getting bored. I've come to collect a substantial amount today. You can afford it. Matthew's inheritance must have come in. Hand it over quickly." "Matthew's inheritance is meant for Christy's future. Why should I give it to you?" "Matthew's inheritance rightly belongs to his mother, me. It's absurd that it goes to the wife and child instead, according to some ridiculous law. So I'll take it directly from you. I have that right. You, as his wife, must take care of me, and Christy has to look after her grandmother. That's common sense in society." "You've squeezed enough money from Matthew already. Despite having father-in-law's inheritance, You've received more than enough from us. I countered Marilyn's absurd logic with reason. Then Marilyn, in her typical fashion, started ranting and stormed into Christy's room. Christy, your mother doesn't understand. You give me what's owed instead. Marilyn screamed and grabbed Christy's piggy bank, smashing it on the floor. The piggy bank shattered, scattering coins everywhere. Marilyn picked up the money with a terrifying expression. Christy stood frozen, trembling at the unbelievable scene. I was too stunned to intervene or even speak. After stuffing the collected money into her pocket, Marilyn threatened, I'll let you off with this for today, but if you don't transfer the usual amount to the bank account within 3 days, who knows what might happen? Christy needs to grow up and lay bigger eggs, but if necessary, we can start now. Well, never mind, just remember, you and Christy exist to serve me, to take care of my needs, my lifestyle. It's all about money, cash. Hand it over quickly. She left as quickly as she had arrived, like a storm passing through. It reminded me of a phrase from a popular TV show theme song from the past. I decided to focus solely on protecting Christy. I dodged Marilyn's unreasonable demands while waiting for the right moment, accepting them when necessary. And so, about 7 years passed. Why didn't you invite me to my granddaughter's wedding? Marilyn suddenly called one day, furious. You're failing as a son's wife. Who is this? I don't have any children. What? I don't understand what you're saying. I'm coming over now, so you better change your attitude and wait. True to her word, Marilyn came and started berating me. Why wouldn't you invite me to the wedding of my cash cow? I heard the groom is quite wealthy. You should greet me properly now, or it'll be troublesome later. As I said earlier, I don't have a daughter, and who are you? You should be a stranger to me. Marilyn looked confused, unable to comprehend my words. My aim was to protect Christy, to ensure she grew up and achieved happiness, skillfully evading Marilyn until then. Now Christy has married and found happiness. First, to protect her, I asked George to help with what you might call an evacuation. I had sent Christy to a safe zone, out of Marilyn's reach. George and his wife readily cooperated, and Christy's evacuation lasted nearly a year. George and his wife, having no children of their own, cherished Christy as if she were their own daughter. When Christy turned 15, they made a proposal to formally adopt Christy. If Christy remained my daughter, Marilyn, as her grandmother, would continue to haunt her. By severing my legal ties with Christy, Marilyn's connection would also be cut off. Although the legal relationship between Marilyn and us had ended with Matthew's death, adopting Christy as George's daughter would further sever ties with Marilyn. I accepted George's proposal. I couldn't let Christy continue to be preyed upon by Marilyn. Even as George's daughter, Christy would always be my beloved child, and George's family had genuinely adored her. They would surely bring her happiness. I bided my time, skillfully handling Marilyn's demands. Christy's marriage marked a turning point. As planned, we didn't invite Marilyn to the wedding. We treated her as non-existent, cleanly cutting off all ties. Marilyn might rage upon finding out, but that didn't matter. She seemed to understand that my connection with Christy had been severed. How dare you do such a ridiculous thing? Marilyn shouted in anger, but another voice echoed back. You've caused enough suffering for Scarlett and Christy. You'll pay for it. I had called George before Marilyn arrived. There is a duty to care for parents and their financial needs in the family, but only if they are truly in need. Marilyn, our mother-in-law, was not in financial distress. She had been extorting money for her own pleasures. We had recorded nearly all of Marilyn's abusive language and unreasonable demands. We would use this as evidence for a damage claim. Let me reiterate, George's a lawyer. So was Dad. Marilyn had no chance of winning. I don't have any money because I failed in investments. That's why I was relying on you and Christy. Not only had Marilyn failed in investments, but she had also been gambling and was in debt. Initial success in both investments and gambling led to her downfall, and she kept losing thereafter. Beginner's luck can be terrifying indeed. With debts and an impending lawsuit, Marilyn's prospects for a decent life were grim. There stood a pitiable, weeping old woman. I felt liberated from the devil, light and free. As a labor relations specialist, I want to return to my dream of helping workers, just as I had envisioned. It had been a long, difficult journey, but it was also a time when I gained the treasure that is Christy. Now that my daughter has grown up, I want to use my time effectively for myself.
Sister-in-law? No way. She's just too filthy for me. A bedridden woman in need of care? She's worthless, isn't she? I heard those words, but I'm not a woman capable of staying calm or a tolerant mother-in-law who understands. On the contrary, I am determined to expose this person for everything she is in memory of my deceased daughter and make her face her own hell. That's what I thought fiercely. My name is Olivia. When I was in my 30s, I couldn't eat oily or rich meat dishes anymore. But now that I'm 60, I can enjoy red meat more than I did when I was younger. I thought it was a bit unhealthy, but it seems there are doctors who recommend steak for breakfast after the age of 65. Since I've lost a little weight due to aging, maybe I should start a steak lifestyle for my morning routine? Just thinking about it sounds like a good life. Now I'm trying to consume more calories, unlike in my 50s when I was avoiding intake to live longer. After my husband Georgie passed away, my eldest son Tim and his wife Emily moved in with me. They were concerned about my lifestyle, and Tim suggested that living together would be good. Until Georgie passed away, we had been caring for our bedridden daughter Katty. Caring for Katty with cerebral palsy was almost a full-time job. Even a single unattended piece of film could be life-threatening for her. Therefore, we took turns in caring for her. If I went out for shopping, Georgie would look after her. After Georgie's death, I considered asking for caregiving services, but financially, it wasn't feasible, and I wanted to take care of Katty myself as much as possible. Understanding this, "Then I'll live with Mom and take care of Katty," Tim said. When Tim was a child, he was mocked by classmates for having a paralyzed sister, but he never denied Katty. Instead, he was upset that others couldn't see how hard she was trying to live her life. Once, Tim got into a big fight for defending her. "Tim threw the first punch, so please apologize to the other child's parents." And I was called to school to apologize because I thought it was unfair, but I understood Tim's feelings. I'll never forget the tears of frustration he shed that day. Even as an adult married with a family, Tim's deep love for Katty remained unchanged, which moved me to tears, and I readily agreed to live together. Emily, my eldest son's wife, is a very gentle and friendly person. After moving in, she was always considerate of my weak legs, helping with laundry and cleaning that required going up and down the stairs. In her spare time, she chats with me while watching TV and doesn't mind watching reruns of historical dramas that I like. Tim, on the other hand, says, "Reruns of historical dramas, the old actors are hard to understand and it feels old-fashioned," and refuses to watch with me, so I'm grateful for Emily's company. It felt like the happy times I had with Georgie were back. One peaceful day, surrounded by my kind family, I overheard Emily talking on the phone. "Yeah, that pompous older woman, Roseanne, is so annoying. Complaining about greetings every day, such a loser, all wrinkled up. She should just retire already." I was surprised to hear such harsh words from the usually calm Emily. It seemed she had a side capable of intense anger. I felt like I had seen a different side of Emily, but I also remembered being scolded at work when I was younger for having a quiet voice. If I spoke loudly, I'd be told, You're too loud, and if I lowered my volume, I just told you yesterday that your voice is too soft. Are you incompetent? I would be yelled at. No matter the volume, it was never right. I figured Emily might be dealing with a similar boss, so maybe it's understandable to vent harshly among close friends. As I witnessed similar incidents more frequently, I felt sorry for Emily, who seemed to be struggling. Then one day, after shopping, I bumped into a group of neighbors. "Hello." As soon as I bowed my head, "Just a minute." Everyone rushed over to me, saying, suddenly surrounded by a group of neighbors, yes? I was perplexed and said, "Your eldest son's wife, what's going on with her?" "My Emily? What about her?" "It's not what you think. She's been leaving trash out without putting it in the bin, and it attracts stray dogs. We have been cleaning up the streets because of it. It's unsanitary and a nuisance." "Oh, really?" I had no idea. I apologize. I'll, speak to her about it. They never listen. We have told Emily so many times, but she doesn't change. Make sure you talk to her family, okay? Since moving in, "It's heavy. Let me do it." Emily had been taking care of the trash, saying, as far as I could see, there was no issue with the way she sorted the trash, and I couldn't imagine her being careless. Surely she knows how to use a trash bin. Or does she? While I pondered this, a neighbor said, "Also, she didn't attend the community meeting recently, did she?" Yes. Why didn't she come?" Emily had said, "I'm off work that day. I'll go," and had gone in my place. I even saw her off. "Have a good time." I said that. Where did she go then? As I was confused, the neighbor's chatter escalated. "The other day, she just scoffed at my warning. She never smiles with her eyes, you know. Keeping her in your house is dangerous. She's no good." Hearing all this, I replied with the only words I could master at the moment. "Well, Emily was supposed to attend that community meeting?" The neighbors looked stunned at my words. "What? No one from your house came? You really should take these gatherings seriously." I'm sorry." Confused, another neighbor added, "I saw her before the meeting. She was smoking in the park at the crossroads." I was dumbfounded. Pretending to go to the meeting but instead smoking in the park? "Are you sure your eldest son's wife is okay?" I couldn't answer. For a moment I wondered myself if Emily was really all right. "She's unfriendly, doesn't even greet. Are you sure you're okay? Isn't Emily causing you trouble?" "No, nothing like that." "Ah, my eldest son's wife is such a treasure. She even got me a birthday present recently." As the neighbors began boasting about how well treated they were by their daughters-in-law, I excused myself, saying, "Katy is waiting for me," and left back home. "Olivia, welcome back from shopping. I'll make you some coffee, so please rest. I'll put the groceries in the fridge." Emily greeted me with a smile, saying this. The contrast between the complaints about her not putting trash in the bin, repeating the same mistakes, and not attending community meetings, and the Emily I saw now was stark. However, I began to wonder if the reason she was scolded at work for her greetings might indeed be Emily's fault. Let's have a thorough talk either today or tomorrow. Just when I was thinking of addressing the issue of the garbage complaints at that time, Katy's health suddenly worsened and she passed away. Katy, who not only had cerebral paralysis, but also suffered from heart and respiratory failure, started to weaken considerably after she turned 20. She spent a lot of time in the hospital and we had been warned about her limited time left. So I was prepared, but it was still devastating to see her go so abruptly. Despite all the love and care I poured into looking after her, honestly, there were times I struggled with the fact that I brought Katy into this world. I felt guilty as a mom for not being able to give her a healthy start in life. We couldn't have real conversations. It was just me and Georgie, who were used to caring for her, trying to understand her intentions through her movements. I'm not even sure if we were able to fulfill what Katy truly wanted. She must have had many more desires of her own. Living with her was full of struggles and pain. But there was just as much happiness, and now, to lose Caddy after Georgie? Since Caddy was born, my life has been all about taking care of her, but how am I supposed to live now without her? I can't even remember what life was like before Caddy. During the funeral, all I could think about was this, and I couldn't stop my tears. Seeing me like this,
Mom, are you okay? Why don't you take a break? Now's a good time. Have a drink and relax for a bit.
Tim said. I realized I hadn't eaten much since Caddy was hospitalized, right up to the funeral. Same with drinks. Strangely, I had no desire for them, almost as if my own biological functions had given up on living. Embarrassed by Tim's perceptiveness of my grief, I headed to the rest area. I needed to be strong to send Caddy off properly. Then I saw Emily's bag near the smoking area outside the rest area. I remembered I hadn't yet told her about the neighborhood complaints. I thought about talking to her later, maybe just for a change of pace. But just then, yeah, the funeral today, it's ruining my day off. Totally sucks. I don't feel sad, you know. She was my sister-in-law and she was bedridden, right? I never talked to her, so I don't feel anything. If anything, it was a nuisance, honestly. She was bedridden and dirty, and her appearance was just gross, a real eyesore. Because of her, I had to live with Olivia, you know? Forced into these country-like traditions, having to attend community gatherings. I should have never agreed to live together, but soon Olivia will be gone too, and all the troubles will disappear. There might not be much, but there's some inheritance, right? Thinking about it, maybe I'm the winner here? Emily's voice, bright and out of place in the funeral home, shocked me with her callous words. I felt like I had seen something I shouldn't have and instinctively hid myself. What? You think I'm great for helping with the care? No way. Just show Olivia and Tim that you're helping and then do whatever you want. Her laughter echoed loudly. I felt anger rise within me. What did she mean by doing whatever she wants when we are not around? Could it be that Caddy's condition worsened and she passed away because Emily neglected her? The thought crossed my mind, but I had no answer. Caddy's official cause of death was heart failure. She had always had a weak heart and she had caught a cold just before she died. The doctor said,
Seems like she lost strength due to the cold and everything contributed to her passing.
It seems that she could have died at any time. She was in a state where constant care was necessary, but I couldn't say anything about Emily's level of care. But if she had provided proper care, wouldn't this have been avoided? I couldn't shake out these thoughts, hating Emily intensely. I couldn't forgive her. No, I wouldn't forgive her. I swore to Caddy's body that I would get my revenge. A month later, I continued to interact with Emily as usual on the surface. I couldn't risk being suspected if I was planning my revenge. When I lightly mentioned the garbage issue, I didn't know how to use the box, Emily responded with an apologetic face. This liar! At that time, I acted as an understanding mother-in-law and said, Oh, is that so? Then it can't be helped. Just be careful from now on. But today was the last day I would forgive Emily's action with a smile. That afternoon, Olivia, what is this? Emily burst into the house, breathless and holding a voice recorder in her right hand. I greeted her with a smile. Oh, what's wrong? You're home early today. Whose fault do you think? Why is there a voice recorder in my Tupperware? I thought it might make your afternoon at work a bit more interesting, so did you play it? I did. I find something like that. Of course, I'm going to be curious about the recording. Emily, pale and raising her voice, got a simple, I see, from me. I secretly grinned. For the past month, since Caddy passed away, I have nothing to do without Caddy's care, so I would like to make lunch. I said preparing lunch for Tim and Emily. Until now, I always gave Emily normal lunches, but today, I hid a voice recorder inside an empty Tupperware. I carefully lined it with styrofoam so it wouldn't make a rattling noise when moved, giving the Tupperware a convincing weight. Emily suspected nothing, took her usual lunch to work as always. I had set the voice recorder so that upon pressing play, it would immediately start with, "Boss, you really stink," followed by Emily laughing loudly and joyfully. This was to make sure others would ask what was that even if Emily stopped the playback immediately. As expected, Emily stopped the playback right away, but not before her boss, who was right behind her, heard the crucial part. The recorder was confiscated and everything was played back on the spot, just as I planned. "When did you record this, me complaining about my superiors?" "Oh, you seem to call your friends often, so when I kept watch, I could record pretty much anytime. You really are two-faced, aren't you?" Yes, for a month, I had been recording Emily's phone conversations with her friends, making sure to capture their content. As it was a secret from Tim, the number of recordings was limited, especially when Emily took weekdays off, but thanks to her lengthy, nasty gossip sessions, even one call provided plenty of material. I chose a recording from when Emily was most heated and ranting for her lunch Tupperware. In that call, Emily spent nearly an hour and a half bad-mouthing her boss, her direct superior, and Rosianne. The content was awful. "The boss had such strong body odor. I can't concentrate when he's instructing. He just got lucky with the company's business. He has no talent and no value in living anymore because of his age. And my direct superior's wife is ugly. He must have been desperate to marry her. She must have been desperate to get married too. They're both life's losers. And Rosianne is wrinkled, fat, single, and her life is essentially over. Better off not living than having such a life." It was a parade of hateful remarks that made you want to tell her to mind her own business. Although Emily seemed diligent at work, she behaved capriciously with subcontractors, which Rosianne couldn't stand. She admonished Emily with, "Say hello properly and speak politely," among other things. Emily always responded half-heartedly, "I'm tired," and "I didn't realize it was there." It seemed like she was trying to dodge it with all sorts of tricks, but Rosianne didn't ask her about those techniques. Emily's company was all men, except for 2 female office workers. Of course, Rosianne was Emily's only female superior and probably the only one who could see through Emily's act of being a good girl because they were both women. Emily knew this and saw Rosianne as an enemy. However, the male employees fully trusted Emily, who seemed to be slightly popular even though she was married. She might have let her guard down around a male friend, which is why such nasty remarks kept coming out. She also endlessly talked about subcontractors and other unbearable things, to the extent that it was impressive how much her friend listened to her. And the voice recording I put in the Tupperware was from this time. "Unbelievable! What are you saying I did? Everyone has 2 sides. Because of Olivia, I was told not to come to work for a while. How are you going to make this right?" Who would want to work with someone who badmouths the boss and unjustly criticizes an innocent superior's wife? It's your own responsibility. So why does that make it my responsibility? It was just a vent. Oh, that's what you did at Caddy's funeral, talking to your friends about how your sister-in-law was dirty and disgusting and a nuisance, right? At that moment, Emily's expression stiffened. "Did you think I didn't know? I was actually right there at that time. I hid because you were saying such terrible things." "That? I didn't mean it." "Are you trying to excuse it by saying you didn't mean it that way? Then does that mean there was a deeper meaning to how you carelessly handled Caddy's care?" As I glared at her, Emily froze with a pale face. "Since you carelessly handle Caddy's care, it's only fair if I carelessly handle your lunch, right? What you did was far worse, wasn't it? There is no reason I should be blamed or go through this just because I didn't care of Caddy. I had no obligation to do so." "Yes, you're right. You had no obligation to take care of Caddy. But you haven't forgotten the condition of living in this house, have you? In exchange for taking care of Caddy, you could live here without paying for food or living expenses. That was the agreement, wasn't it? What about it?" I talked to Tim about you last night. He's probably going to bring up divorce tonight. What? He cared a lot about Caddy. So your remarks at the funeral were unforgivable. Although he didn't have the recording from that day, hearing your voice, bad-mouthing people at work made him fully believe it. That can't be true, right? It's true. Tim is important to me. I warned him about having someone as two-faced as you around. That's ridiculous. Is it so bad to speak ill of a sister-in-law who's no longer in this world? So that's your true nature? Disgusting. You think it's okay to say anything about someone who's no longer in this world? How would you feel if, say, your parents passed away and your mother-in-law or husband said the same things you did? How would you feel if your parents, who were cared for every day, were carelessly looked after by in-laws and passed away, perhaps coincidentally? Emily fell silent, perhaps imagining her parents dying that way, and began to cry. It's not just about saying bad things. It's about not being able to imagine other people's pain. That's why we can't be family. I'm sorry. After that, Emily stayed in her room for a while, but was dragged out for a family meeting upon Tim's arrival, where their divorce was formally decided. An enraged Tim told Emily to pay back an amount equivalent to the food and living expenses she has saved so far and to leave the house the next day. Emily, drained of energy, just kept saying, I understand. The conversation wasn't much, but it led to a compliant divorce. When Emily visited the house later for settlement, she was unemployed. The voice recorder incident had caused a stir in the office. At first, everyone was skeptical of Emily's true nature. The boss, who had planned to observe her after a suspension, that girl slacked off at work and was rude to subcontractors, turned cold towards Emily after Roseanne said this. The other employees felt the same, and after her suspension, no one believed in Emily anymore. She left her job due to the uncomfortable environment. When I saw Emily after a long time, she had become quite emaciated. The last thing she said to me was, I have had the chance to reflect on myself. Thank you. That's what she said. I don't wish her happiness, but I do hope Emily can grow more as a person from now on. That's a wish from someone who was once her mother-in-law and a senior in life. Since then, Tim hasn't remarried, but he seems to enjoy his work and moved out after getting a job transfer. He has been promoted rapidly and bought a pedigree Bengal cat with his savings. He named it Caddy, the same as his sister. He stumbled upon a cat with the same birthday as Caddy's at the pet shop and felt it was fate. Bengals are quite robust among cats.
Live strongly this time, Caddy.
And Tim dotes on the cat, saying, it seems he sometimes gets bitten, but he finds that endearing too.
There is even love in the scars. Cats over woman,
he said once, which naturally made me worry about him in various ways. Well, he seems happy even after the divorce, so that's a relief. As for me, becoming single led me to join a local tennis circle, building new relationships and enjoying my days. There's someone skilled in baking, and on days without tennis, we often gather at their house to learn baking. The tea party afterwards is one of my joys. It makes me realize that life is something you can always start new things and enjoy no matter the age. There are quite a few things I can do like when I was younger, but that's how it is. It's not bad to enjoy what I can to the fullest. I plan to enjoy life to the fullest until I join Caddy and Georgie. Life is all about the spirit of challenge, right? It doesn't have to be a life everyone envies. But I want to continue enjoying my second life, finding my own kind of fun.